Thank you. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting, pages 10 to 12. Anything that we need to raise from the minutes?
No, thank you.
No, can we approve them as an accurate record? Thank you. Okay. Item 4, the corporate risk register. So if I can ask the Deputy Chief to talk us through it, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this report brings forward the October to March update of the corporate risk register from 25 to 26 and asks members to approve the updated register. The purpose is to provide assurance that the authority continues to identify, assess and manage the key strategic risks that could affect our ability to deliver safe and effective and well-governed services. The register aligns risks to the authority's vision, its purpose and sets out the relevant risk appetite. It identifies current and mitigated scores and confirms the control measures and accountable owners in each risk area. The authority's overall risk appetite remains measured, particularly where risks relate to public safety, legal compliance, financial stewardship, staff safety and service delivery. Members should note that this is not a static document. The strategic leadership team reviews the register and has updated the position of it in March 26. We've also now sought an external review to strengthen the future approach for compiling the risk register. That work will inform a revised method of capturing and escalating risks from department level upwards for the 26-27 register, and therefore this is probably the last time you'll see the risk register in the format that it is in front of you. In summary, the paper provides governance and assurance over the authority's corporate risks. The recommendation is that members approve the updated register attached to Appendix A, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions about the corporate risk register? Okay, please.
I'm just curious really, page 7 it says that we're having a challenge when trying to recruit mechanics, and I think this has been ongoing for a few years, hasn't it? Because we remember going to visit the workplace and they were saying there that we had difficulty, and I can't really understand why, because it offers a work-life balance, it's a modern workplace. I just wanted to clarify, do we offer, I'm sure we do, upskilling when people come on board? I just can't quite understand why. Is that a general thing across the board, or is it something to do with the service?
Yeah, we have, as you quite rightly say, this has been an ongoing issue. We are absolutely struggling with market forces in terms of pay. You're quite right, I think our conditions for our staff are second to none. However, often it's pay that dictates, where someone works for their own recompense and so on. So there's only so much that we can do other than pay. We have uplifted pay over the last 2 years to a market forces payment to try and so it's a temporary change to the pay for the workshop staff, and that's come up, I think, Mike, for review in September again this year to take another look at it. But you're quite right, it is a constant challenge, not just in workshops but in other technical areas such as protection. So we have an ongoing battle to retain staff against probably the private sector who often have more flexibility in terms of what they can pay.
Yeah, so at this stage we're doing as much as we possibly can to make that an attractive.
Yeah, absolutely, and to assure the authority we will be reviewing that again later in the year, just to make sure that what we are offering is is enough to retain our staff. And you're right in terms of development, that's all absolutely one of the positives for working here.
Thank you.
Councillor.
Thanks, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Byron.
Yes, thank you. I've got another point, but on that point, as you'll see, it says we are NJC paying within the Green Book, and a lot of the comparable with private sector garages and maintenance, commercial vehicle maintenance and so forth. So that's part of what the Green Book needs to look at as well. We're part of that. There are sectors. It's difficult to recruit safety inspectors and things of that nature, that we are, we're a bit behind the piece. Yeah. What I wanted to say is that this document, in fact, most of the stuff on the agenda for today, these are the control measures that we as members have. Bear in mind, in this authority, our officers deliver the services, but we are in control as members of the highlight of the agenda. You see that most of the the front items, I've got the red stripe down. Then there's the mitigation, which is either, there's a couple of red, but mostly amber and green. And it is an objective decision to say, well, we've highlighted this as being a red risk, and then there's the dialogue, and then we've made a decision that it's amber or green in some cases as well. I don't think you can get it right in every case. And also there are some issues here that need to drop off probably. That you know, the risks that we face have changed somewhat. But for the sake of this at the moment, it's for us to scrutinise the current risks that we have, and to sort of say, well, maybe there's this, maybe there's that. Obviously, the risk that we've got at the moment is we're going to have a change of minister, there'll be a change of financing regime, and also, you know, in the world of finance, there's a lot of pressure to fund defence. Would we be considered part or an extension of that? Who knows? But that is, there's risks growing, emerging, and as was said, this has to be a live document as well. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Amrad?
Thanks, Chair. I think what Liza said is quite right. I think one of the other biggest challenges is obviously our succession planning for people for recruitment and retirement, and to making sure that level is steady across like a 5 or 10 year period. So I think that's crucial, because in all elements of the service we need to ensure that we do plan ahead to make sure that we've got appropriate people in the right places at the right time. The other thing is obviously the governance and the future changes in the governance arrangements and how we deal with that, because you can imagine with the uncertainty of what's going on with the devolution and the staff that we have at the moment, they might feel a bit insecure in the role and might decide to leave and go and work somewhere else, you know, and that would be a shame if it did, because we need to ensure that we've got fantastic staff right across the service, and we need to try our best to retain that. So I think that communication, what with the staff and between ourselves, the politicians, and what goes on within the city region and what goes on with the discussions with government, is that we scrutinise that very, very carefully and very closely, because whatever fix there's going to be, whatever's going to be suggested for the next stage of the fire and rescue service, then we need to ensure that it's right and that we have as much input into that as possible. And I don't know whether that's a matter for, because it's ongoing discussions, whether that's a matter for an item that should be placed on the scrutiny committee, so that they can be updated with any discussions and, you know, the government changes of you know, their perspective about how they see things going forward, or whether there's further negotiations or consultations on ideas of how we see things fit, because we're in a different position than others because we're the National Resilience Lead, so we need to make sure that we can put as much influence into that about what's going to happen at the next stage. So if we miss the opportunity, we just get told at a later date this is the way it's going to be, I think it will be a disservice to everybody. So we need to make sure that we keep a close eye on it and we scrutinise it at every stage as we go forward.
Dave, any other comments? Back to you, Les.
Yes, thank you. On this specific point, it's quite right. I wish that we knew exactly the way things were going to go. Last Thursday I met with Mayor Rotherham and basically said, yeah, we've got a real world. We're dealing with this as adults. Our ruling criteria will be public safety and the motivation and safety of our staff. The rest of it will follow the legislative process. But we're not going to die in a ditch over something that's possibly inevitable, but we're going to try and get the best deal that we possibly can get out of this. I think Steve's of the same mould. Mayor Rotherham is the same mould. I think you're absolutely right. The scrutiny committee must set its own agenda, and if the scrutiny committee wants to scrutinise, I think it will be essential. It's choosing the right time. There's no point scrutinising when we're in a period of still looking through the mist at this. It's coming. You know, it also depends what the new government from Monday, what perspective that has on it as well. I hope and assume that scrutiny, in fact, the full authority will have to spend a lot of time giving this a lot of consideration. We have had one informal briefing on it, and there will be more. Thank you.
Just to pick up on the chair's final point and your points, Dave, absolutely. There's a change in future ahead, I think, in terms of staff and confidence of our staff and so on, the senior leadership and the chief. As I said, there's been one meeting now, and in terms of what that future looks like, I think that the balance is, until we know a little bit more firmly the direction of travel, probably in terms of timescales and what that looks like. As I said, it's the future's a bit misty in terms of that. I think in terms of what we convey to staff and what we communicate is very scant at the moment. And so in terms of that, I know the chief has been discussing that with the senior leadership team here around, okay, so when we know something, we will start to communicate. But right now, I think it's sort of very early days in terms of new conversations. So just to assure the authority that obviously we want to keep our staff informed, it's just difficult in terms of what we're informing them about right now without causing people to worry and potentially exacerbating the situation where people think that maybe there is something to worry about. So we're just trying to make sure we know what we're talking about before we start communicating, I think.
Any other comments? No? Okay, well, we're being asked to approve the updated corporate risk register to incorporate the current status of all those risks. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Item 5, that's the service delivery plan for 25-26, quarter 4 end of year update. Deputy.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to enable members to scrutinise the service's performance against the objectives, targets and outcomes set within the 25-26 service delivery plan and its supporting appendices. The recommendation before members is to approve the service delivery plan updates for publication. Overall, this is a positive end-of-year performance report, and it provides assurance that the service continues to perform strongly against both its service delivery plan and its community risk management plan objectives. The headline outcome is accidental dwelling fires for me. During 25-26, we attended only 714 accidental dwelling fires, which is way below the target we anticipated. It's lower than last year and represents the second lowest number that we've ever recorded by the service in our history. Given that accidental dwelling fires remain one of our greatest risks in our community, I think that this outcome this year reflects the long-term impact of our prevention and response activity. Members can find those figures on page 110 of your pack. Operational performance has also remained exceptionally strong. We achieved our attendance standard for life risk incidents on 96.9% of occasions against the target of 90%. And whilst 97.4 of our 999 calls are also answered within 10 seconds, again exceeding the target. Members can find those results on page 106 and 116 of your pack. Overall, our fire performance is strong. Total incidents finished almost exactly where we thought they would, whilst total fires and primary fires both finished below target. And that's despite, I think you just had some input on the prolonged period of hot and dry weather experienced during the spring and summer months last year. Deliberate dwelling fires also reduced compared to the previous year. This report also demonstrates continued progress against our strategic priorities, including enhanced water rescue capability, national resilience asset replacement programmes, and progress towards our net zero ambitions. The report is clear about areas where further improvements can be made and are required. Sickness absence remains above the level that we expect, and is probably the most significant performance challenge I can see within this report. Whilst work continues to support staff wellbeing and attendance management, reducing absence remains an organisational priority for us. False alarm demand also continues to increase, placing additional pressure on our operational resources. Secondary fires, moving on to secondary fires, finished slightly above target following a prolonged period of hot and dry weather. However, this increase is not unique to Merseyside. It reflects a wider national trend associated with warmer and drier summers and conditions. Importantly, the increase experienced here in Merseyside is lower than the increase seen nationally. And I think that provides assurance to the authority that our prevention and intervention activity continues to mitigate some of that demand. As members are aware, climate-related impacts and extreme weather events are becoming an increasingly important consideration within our community risk management planning and can absolutely influence and significantly influence our service demand. Just for worth noting for members, as we sit here today, we have two fire appliances from Merseyside actively supporting Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Service. They've been there for around a week, probably going to be there for another week now, and that's to help them deal with a wildfire event, as you've seen probably on the news. So again, I think the authority should be proud of us leaning into other services to help when needed. It's also important to view our performance in context around secondary fires. Despite the seasonal pressures, the service recorded its quietest ever bonfire period on record, with only 123 deliberate secondary fires attended. For me, this reflects the impact our targeted prevention activity has, the work of our arson reduction teams who've worked extremely hard over that period, and the partnership working of which the authority were fully involved in terms of setting what was acceptable around bonfire periods in our communities. I think that active involvement of the authority on the run up to bonfire night, I think that has had a significant impact. So, and you can see those figures on pages 112 and 113 of your pack. So in summary, this report shows strong operational performance. It's the second lowest number of accidental dwelling fires ever recorded by the service. It's the quietest bonfire period on record. We continue to progress against our strategic commitments and our strong response standards. It's transparent about the areas where improvement remains necessary, particularly sickness absence and false alarm demand, and the impact of increasing extreme weather conditions. I therefore commend the report to members. I ask that that you approve the service delivery plan updates for publication in line with the recommendation before the committee today. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Makinson.
Thank you, Chair. A very positive set of figures, certainly. A couple of questions. Firstly, on page 85, on the issue with working with partners on lithium ion battery fires. What involvement did the service have in Merseyrail's decision to ban non-folding e-bikes from their work? And do we have any view on the decision to allow folding e-bikes to continue to be carried on the underground?
I'm looking for my head of prevention, who's just presented the last. I'm unsure
It's on
about.
his bike.
Yeah, he's on his bike. On his train, on his bike. I can find that out for you, Councillor. I'm not aware that we had any input on the decision for Merseyrail in either of those circumstances, so but we can certainly take a look.
Thank you. Just more generally throughout the report, there seems to be quite a lot of targets that have been moved through to this year. None of them individually are concerning, but just on a general point, do you feel maybe the targets were too ambitious to fit everything in last year, or were there other factors at play like staff and resources?
Yeah, there's always the temptation to be overly ambitious. We do spend a long time making sure that we are we are fully considered in terms of what we do and what we plan to do in the year. I think some of the areas that we've had to move over have been outside of our control. So some of it's been like software development and being held with third parties and so on, which haven't quite delivered as we would have expected. So it's not concerning for myself. I don't think we've been overly ambitious, but we tend to be a little ambitious in fairness. But yeah, I don't note anything for concern in here, and I'm fully confident that we will not only deliver this year's, but we'll continue with what we've carried over from last year.
Yeah. Any other comments? Okay. Councillor O'Keefe.
Can I just ask on page 115, it's about the false alarm attendant. It's about the actual false alarm calls. What do we do over, because that's gone up again, if I remember rightly, that went up last year by, I think, the same amount. Yeah. What do we do so when you catch somebody who's constantly making false alarm calls, do we have a process?
Yeah, in terms of, I suppose just before we get into that bit, false alarms is an interesting subject, because actually we don't want to dissuade people, so there's different categories of false alarms, so we don't want to dissuade people from ringing the fire service because that would be obviously counterintuitive. We want people to call us. I'm quite happy if it's been in good faith and we've attended and we've not been needed. You're quite right, the deliberate, more malicious calls, that is somewhere where our call handlers can spot those, and in terms of recognising what that is, and we'll take a professional view on that. I'm not, might be worth the authority at some future point. To fire control, because the technology now we can see within, I think, a metre of where the phone calls coming from mobile phones and everything, so we can actually pinpoint where that is, where that call is coming from. A lot of the issues that we're having actually is more around being dispatched via automatic systems and so on. So the work the protection department do with those businesses, which are just fail safe into calling the fire service instead of having someone on hand on the premises to confirm that call. So some of the work we do is looking for confirmation of that from AFAs, and we've reduced those AFAs quite significantly over time. For me, I think they're creeping back up, so definitely that's something we'll be looking at back with protection, just to make sure that we're holding those businesses to account. That's probably where the issue is probably most where we can move the needle a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Pine?
Yes, thank you. Are we still going to deal with this one? You're back now. Parked your bike outside. Yeah, not a folding one.
There was a question around Merseyrail and e-bikes, and were we involved in the decision to either ban e-bikes from Merseyrail? Is that right?
That's original.
That's right.
Folding ones.
And particularly why it was chosen just to ban the non-folding e-bikes, allow the folding ones to continue to be used on the underground.
To give you a full answer, I'll probably have to come back to you.
Sure.
If that's appropriate, that's okay. Yeah, I'd have to look into that.
Well, you needn't have dashed back.
Sorry, so I was looking forward to that. Maybe. I'll contact you.
Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant.
I suppose it does kind of suggest that it's more of a space issue than a safety one, doesn't it? If it's folded but not.
Sometimes these issues are, several transport authorities have a policy, and the folding ones might be. I've no idea. I've never even seen a folding e-bike. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, look, I think page 251. I think it's still on the same agenda. It's about reducing the impact of stress on staff in the capability process, and I see it's highlighted red, and in the rubric on the page over page 253, it talks about working with the representative bodies and the refresher training. All I'm asking for is that this is a very interesting area. Could we have maybe a learning lunch or some member engagement with this? And it might be something that the scrutiny committee in due course wants to possibly look at, stress in the capability process. Because capability is not new by any means, but it is one of those things whereby we keep our staff right up to scratch and active.
Just as a little headline, if it's acceptable, we have started to work towards that in the agreement to the trade unions, so that where somebody's coming into the capability process at the early stages, we've now done away with the meeting that used to take place, so they haven't got the stress of worrying about going into a meeting into the confines of it. So we're working basically a tabletop, so we can do 7 or 8 of the basic ones that need to be addressing very simplistically. They're normally very easy outcomes, and it removes the need for the individual to be dragged into something at that level at the first stages, and then yes, we'll build them up and beyond. But I'm more than happy to do so, Councillor. I'm due to speak at Scrutiny Committee later this year around the broader people plan, so I can enhance that element within that delivery to the Scrutiny Committee if that assists.
It's their work programme, but yes, it's a suggestion. Thank you.
Any other comments? No? Okay. So it's recommended that we approve the attached service delivery plan for publication on the website. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay. Item 6. We've got the revenue and capital outturn for 25-26. So over to Mike.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update members on the revenue, capital and reserve budget adjustments made in the last quarter of 25-26, the actual outturn position for the year and any year-end variances. Recommendations are that members note the actual revenue spend compared to the approved budget delivered a net underspend of 2.998 million before the creation of year-end reserves as outlined in Appendix A1. Asking members to approve the underspend to be used to create the required year-end reserves of 596,000 to fund commitments and expenditure now expected in 2026-27 and increase the general revenue reserve by 400,000 and increase the clothing reserve by 500,000. This is to contribute towards the future uniform solution following any recommendation put forward by the current service review, and increase the capital investment reserve by 1.5 million to offset capital cost inflationary pressures and reduce planned borrowing to free up revenue budget associated with debt servicing costs. We also approved the rephasing of planned capital spend from 25-26 into future years of 28.430 million, 24.962 million relates to National Resilience Asset Refresh as outlined in Appendix B, and approved the committed reserves of 15.541 million and a general reserve of 4.3 million as outlined in Appendix 4. The revenue budget movements in quarter 4 are summarised in paragraph 10 on pages 305 and 306. There's been a small net reduction in reserves of 12k. The remaining adjustments reflect a number of self-balancing requirements as outlined in paragraph 10. The table on page 307 confirms the final revenue budget remained consistent with the original approved budget of 77.934 million. And the revenue outturn position, when compared to the final budget, as summarised in the table on the top of page 308, confirms the year-end revenue underspend of 2.998 million. After taking into account the 596,000 of year-end reserves requested by budget managers to fund commitments and expenditure now expected in 26-27 or future years, the available underspend is 2.402 million. And paragraph 13 on pages 308 to 310 provides members with an explanation of the major revenue variances in 25-26 that resulted in the underspend, and Appendix A1 to A3 provide a detailed analysis of the revenue outturn position. After applying the proposed reserve adjustments, the authority's overall revenue expenditure is consistent with the approved budget. 25-26 capital budget and outturn position is outlined on paragraph 14 to paragraph 20 on pages 310 to 315. And in quarter 4, the 25-26 capital programme budget increased by 10.5 million. However, the overall 5-year capital budget increased by 17.2 million. And paragraph 15 on pages 310 outlines the capital budget amendments made in quarter 4. The capital outturn position is outlined in paragraphs 17 to 20 and is summarised in the table on the top of page 312. Actual spend at the end of 25-26 was 29.4 million below the budget. Of this, 28.4 million has been rephased into 26-27 and future years, and paragraph 19 provides an explanation for this rephasing. A saving of 974,000 on various 25-26 schemes was identified at year end, and Appendix B provides a detailed analysis of the capital outturn position. Paragraphs 21 to 29 outline the available reserves in the year and the movement in quarter 4 and the proposed year end adjustments. As already mentioned, at year end, officers reviewed the revenue position and requested year end reserves to carry forward funds to meet spend now expected in 26-27 or future years. Paragraph 25 outlines the 596,000 of year-end reserves requested by officers. The report proposes using the 2.4 million revenue underspend to increase the general revenue reserve, increase the clothing reserve and increase the capital investment reserve as outlined in paragraphs 26. After taking these adjustments into account, the level of committed reserves increased by 1.9 million in the year. The table on page 317 and Appendix A4 summarise the movement in committed reserves, opening and closing balances in the year. Members are asked to note the year-end position and approve the recommended reserve adjustments, capital rephasing and closing reserve balances. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Are there any questions? Councillor Byron?
Thank you. People might think we've got more money than we need. Of course, the answer is that we get no capital. We have revenue, we have no capital at all. We rely upon teasing out, salting away, a little bit of money from each budget to give us the money for the capital, or often it's we borrow the money and then you need that revenue teased out to pay for the loan effectively. And so this is just demonstrating the very careful financial management that our staff are well known throughout the world of fire for maintaining. We are lobbying the government at these difficult times. We're lobbying the government on the whole issue of capital. And if there's no more money generally, and it's unlikely that there will be, but would there be a change in the way principal local authorities get capital? We don't. And it's an anachronism that occurred a couple of decades ago, but we still are in that situation where principal councils aren't. We're lobbying the government on that. They're aware of it, and actually they were a bit surprised when we went heavy on this. We remain hopeful.
Councillor Hemrathy.
Thanks, Chair. It's just that obviously this day and age of new technology and AI systems and things like that and drones, are we investing sufficient monies into future development and technology? I'm sure we are, but just because it takes so long these days, doesn't it, to improve the ICT systems, and before you know it, by the time you get it installed, it's outdated and it's been improved by something else. So we need to be one step ahead with this. I'm not brilliant on ICT myself, so you know, I just don't work my phone.
You've got two.
I've got two, yeah. So it's just being ahead of the game, really, isn't it? Because you hear about these horror stories as well, like the news that was released this morning about one of the AI systems actually hacked another AI system which should have been protected, and type of thing. So when we think about scams and hacking,
We didn't have a sufficient sandbox.
and making sure that we get the right things, what we need is what we require, that we're at the top of our game.
Who knows about AI?
So, Deb Appleton's in the room, who's the director over our ICT. I'll answer that if I can, and Deb can come in if I get any of this wrong. In terms of AI, particularly, we've had a real hard look at in terms of data protection and how we use AI corporately, and we've progressed that with Microsoft 365, and Deb and her team has given us all the assurances necessary to make sure that we can use AI without any of our corporate information being drawn off into the wider in terms of data protection, and some of the things we deal with are extremely sensitive, and we were really concerned that some of that information could be lifted out of Merseyfire. So by employing Microsoft 365 and the licensing around that, we've got that. We are working our way through how best to apply AI into the service, and we've started that with a kind of top-down approach in terms of extended licenses for department heads and directors and senior managers across the service. Interestingly, there's going to be an article in the Fire Times coming in the next version of that from Merseyside around our progress around that, so we'll make sure that members are cited on that in terms of what we're doing around in that particular area. I think you're right, it's moving so fast, we've just got to be careful that we keep the protections in line with what we need to, given what I've already said about sensitive data. So from an AI perspective, I think we are taking a very measured approach to how we employ AI into the service and what we use it for. In terms of technology for firefighting and so on, yeah, that will be a feature in our next CRMP. You're quite right, drone technology and so on. We've been an early adopter of drones in Merseyfire. We have a drone team. We have a couple of drones, bigger drones that we've used successfully at fires, and we've investigated the use of the smaller handheld ones with our 2 wildfire teams. So again, that's a progressing area for us. So hopefully that gives you some reassurance. But again, coming back to learning lunches and so on, perhaps that might be a good focus for one in the future around technology in the future. But yeah, just to assure you, we are, particularly with AI, that there's a lot of moving parts for that at the moment. Deb, I don't know if you want to come in on
The
any
only
of that.
thing I was going to add was around cyber security. So everything Deb said is what I would say as well, but just for members to be assured that cyber security is a top priority for us. So pragmatism, I suppose, is the word for me. And sometimes I maybe do have to disappoint our my fellow officers a little bit and say, well, yes, we will do that, but let's just make sure that it's safe. So things like buying new applications, we make sure that we've got a governance process to go through, so that where data is being stored, we're happy that that's safe, that the way in which staff would use it is safe as well. Because I think cybersecurity is actually probably one of the biggest, most concerning risks. So everything else we do has cybersecurity in mind, but AI, I think we've handled in that very sort of measured, pragmatic way. That what we're looking for is something that will benefit the staff who work here without them feeling threatened by that, but equally will benefit the public in the way that we provide our services to them. So yeah, I think pragmatic and measured, but a little bit ambitious as well is probably where we're at with that.
Yes, thank you. I mean, in terms of research and development, blue sky thinking, horizon raising, all this stuff, what's happening on the world stage. What's coming, as we know, we've lobbied for this, Dave, is a College of Fire. And there will be, the government last government, new government, have indicated that they will support a College of Fire. We will be asked to chip in, no doubt, but we've obviously asked for new money as well. But these are the people who will collectively look at what's happening in the rest of the world, where we're going. There's no use just one fire service doing this. This is something that we could do collectively. One of the things I raised the other day when I was down at the LGA was, you have a fire, kids probably are putting up little mini drones and flying around the fire. We've got our drones up, they've got their drones, and they're just filming it for the purposes of getting it on, clickbait. There has to be anti-drone technology, and there has to be anti-drone legislation that sort of says, in these critical areas, you can very quickly put in a no-fly zone and protect the event so that we can just get on with the important job of protecting life and property. The world is changing, it's changing fast, and we do have to look at what's happening right across the whole world. There'll be some money to put into that, but I think the government are on top of this as well.
Okay, I was coming back to the underspend then. First thing to say is obviously it's very helpful to have 3 million that we hadn't budgeted for to be able to reallocate to areas that we are of significant priority. But in previous meetings I have said sometimes, and I've warned that sometimes it's not always as good a thing as it looks on the surface, because it can mean that posts have gone unfilled, or those sorts of things. That's where the savings can come from, which is why I was pleased when I looked at the report. I looked and there was a detailed analysis, and it seemed that most of the savings were more likely to come from things like the continuation of certain grants that we hadn't necessarily budgeted for, or secondments, or being able to sort of find alternate funding sources for certain things. So I'm pleased that when you actually look at the granular detail, most of this is genuinely just money that we've been able to find and reallocate, rather than coming from like a more negative place. So I'm very pleased with the report as it stands. We're being asked, well, we can see the recommendations A, B, C and D. To note the actual revenue spend, to approve that the underspend be used for items I through IV, to approve the rephasing of the planned capital spend, and to approve committed reserves and the general reserve. Do we agree all those recommendations?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Well, in that case, that takes us to the end of this meeting, and our next meeting will be on the 10th of December. So,
Bring them in spies.